want to get right into our panel to talk a little bit about what we just heard from Carl Cameron. And joining me here on set is Scott Blakeman, political humorist. You have a blog, you have a website?
Liberalcomedian.com.
Want to make sure we get that in.
Thank you.
And Ford O'Connell joining us live from our D.C. bureau. And Ford is the chairman of Civic Forum PAC and the co-founder of Project Virginia. Do you have a tweet, a Twitter page, a blog we can mention?
At Ford O'Connell on Twitter and at Political Quarterback on Twitter.
All right. Very good. Thanks for joining us live today, Ford. I'm going to go ahead and start with you, Scott, and talking about Herman Cain and just what this has meant to the race.
Well, as a political comedian, it's a great loss that he's suspending. I never thought of Herman Cain.
It'll last you for a little while.
Yes, well, we could still refer to it, and he's suspending, so he's going to be there. It's all about Herman Cain. It's always been only about Herman Cain. I never saw him as a serious candidate. And frankly, it's the sad thing for me is really it's his wife and his family that he's dragged through the mud, and that's the tragedy there. You know, it's no great loss. He added nothing to the campaign in any other way, and so he's very much like Donald Trump, who also led in the polls when he was running. It's all about him.
Ford, a lot of people believe that he did add a lot to the campaign with his 999 plan. Tell us your thoughts.
Well, I think he did add a lot to the campaign, particularly on the Republican side, because he brought outsider enthusiasm, and that was very important for a conservative base that's really railing against establishment Republicans. Also, his emphasis on the 999 plan and tax reform was something that really hit a lot of conservative voters, is something that we need to really focus on going forward.
Well, he was down to 8% of the polls in Iowa, so it's a very small group. So if he does endorse somebody, that might be a shift of 30, 40 votes here or there. It's not a big deal. And the 999 was derided.
It's a small group now, but let's remember at one point before the allegations and before a lot of items came out there, he was up there as among the co-frontrunners. So I hear what you're saying, Scott. I'm just saying there's a lot of ideas out there and a lot of enthusiasm he brought that the Republican primary voter is really looking for.
Well, I agree he did bring enthusiasm, but his 999 plan was roundly dismissed by virtually all the other Republican candidates, too. So he was a colorful, likable guy until he became not likable.
Right.
No, I agree with you, and I really hope, wish him and his family the best, and I think he's going to have a lucrative career as a television talking head.
I agree with you on that, Ford, definitely.
And speaking about Newt Gingrich, so looking at some of the articles that came out over the weekend and today, talking about this resurgency that Newt is enjoying right now, but we heard from a former New Hampshire governor who said that if you listen to just about anyone who worked alongside Gingrich, you will hear that he is, quote, inconsistent, erratic, untrustworthy, and unprincipled. Some strong criticism coming out on Newt.
Well, he would fit right in with many of the other candidates. No, actually, Senator Tom Coburn of Oklahoma said he served under Gingrich in the House, and knowing what it's like to serve under him, he wouldn't support him. So, and ironically, here Herman Cain is dropping out because of his alleged infidelities and treatment of women. And Newt Gingrich, it's a matter of public record, his infidelities and other things. So, and he doesn't have any real political, campaign infrastructure, which will be very important as they go further down the road.
And Ford, what do you think about Newt's participation moving forward and what we're going to see with this? A Gingrich spokesperson, R.C. Hammond, said it was no surprise that his boss has some critics, saying that Newt has been a constant challenge to the status quo in Washington, and it's natural that he would disturb a few people.
Well, I think that's the thing, and I think that a lot of conservative voters out there are starting to rally behind Newt Gingrich. One, because he's a fighter. They want someone who's going to bring the fireworks to President Obama. But two, unlike Romney at this juncture, he's shown himself to stick to his conservative guns when push comes to shove, as we saw with Contractors of America and also with the government shutdown. So, Newt has a lot to work on. He does have to get his campaign assets on place. He also has to put the brakes on his mouth. He's got a problem with going too far a lot of times. And yes, he does have to get that campaign infrastructure in there because he may be leading in the polls, but he's got to convert that at the ballot box.
And with money as well.
Right.
Well, absolutely. I mean, that's why he's out now hitting the fundraising trail in full tilt, and he's going to have to do that because if he doesn't get a quick strike victory against Mitt Romney by the Florida primary, we have about a we have a significant lull between Florida and Super Tuesday, and frankly, Mitt Romney's just better built from an organizing and fundraising standpoint. So, it's one of these things that he could just beat Gingrich to death, by a war of attrition.
But, the volatility of this points out. But I remember when Gingrich entered the race, the very day he was on Meet the Press, and he attacked Paul Ryan's Medicare plan for radical social engineering. And basically, everyone was saying he's gone, he's finished, he should get out of the race now.
Right.
And fast forward, a few months, and he's the front runner. So it's so volatile. I wouldn't be surprised if someone wins Iowa who we're not even talking about, and then the whole thing gets upended.
And right now, the Romney campaign says it's not alarmed by the Gingrich surge, with one advisor saying the candidate relishes the challenge. Mr. Romney's strongest challengers, Michelle Bachmann, Rick Perry, and Mr. Cain, have faded, they say, largely because of self-inflicted wounds. Ford?
Well, that is true, but I'm going to tell you something. Team Romney is scared of Newt Gingrich. And, a lot of it has to do with the fact that Newt Gingrich, if we look across these polls, whether it's the Des Moines Register or it's Marist, we notice that Newt Gingrich is the second favorite of most Republican primary voters. Now, while we have 60% of Republican primary voters who've not made up their mind, that is something that really worries Team Romney. It was quite obvious in the Bret Baier interview that he went right after Gingrich right out of the gate.
Right. What did you think of did you see the interview with Bret Baier? What were your thoughts on that?
I thought it was very fair and tough questioning, and I think Mitt Romney has shown himself to be kind of thin-skinned, and he has a nervous laugh when he doesn't really know what he's supposed to say. And, he's, oh, boy, what kind of interview is this? No, it's journalism. It's called asking tough questions, and if you're going to be president, that should be the easiest part, is answering questions.
Ford, you mentioned...
Well, I do agree. I think that Bret gave a very strong interview. What I'm very concerned about, if I'm a Romney supporter, is Romney has to get past one argument. He has one argument, and that is the electability argument, and he doesn't understand that a lot of Republican primary voters want more than that. They want fireworks. They want somebody who's going to take the fight to President Obama, and Mitt Romney hasn't shown himself to be that person just yet, because a lot of the flip-flopping he's done, and not that Newt Gingrich hasn't changed positions, but a lot of the flip-flopping he's done is seen based on political convenience, and that worries a lot of people, because we're going to have a lot of issues coming forward in the next 4 to 8 years where you're going to have to stick to your conservative guns when push comes to shove.
I thought one thing that was interesting in one of the articles, Ed Gillespie, former chairman of the Republican National Committee, said the coming weeks could test the two leading GOP contenders. They're saying that Republicans are watching Newt to see whether he'll have the discipline to be the nominee, and they're looking to see whether there's more passion from Mitt Romney. So in coming days, he says Newt needs to be more like Romney, and Romney needs to be more like Newt. Do you agree, Ford?
Oh, I absolutely agree. I mean, this is one of Newt Gingrich's biggest flaws. He can't put the brakes on his mouth. We saw this with the, immigration laws, not immigration laws, the labor laws for children, and sometimes the immigration laws. What he was saying, he made a great point about immigration, but that's a point that's better made in the general election, not running 1 month up to Iowa.
What do you think? Do you think that Newt needs to be more like Romney? Romney needs
I think a hybrid, Newt Mitt, so Mitt Newt, which is a plant, I think if something would be a formidable candidate, but they need to borrow from each other, and I think Newt needs to borrow some of Romney's money. But, I think if I agree with Ford, in the primaries, you were talking about electability in the general election, but I think, as Ford said, people want the red meat. Those who don't agree with President Obama want someone to really articulate their passion, and Mitt Romney, in addition to being a flip-flopper, is just inauthentic, and people need to know who is Mitt Romney?
Right. And as we move forward, Ford, what are you going to be looking for? What are some of the key things that you'll be looking for in some of the next, when we see our candidates up in front of the microphones?
Well, it's not just the candidates in front of a microphone, because basically Romney and Gingrich have done the best job debating. What I'm looking at is more under the hood. Can Gingrich get the assets on the ground, and can he convert in Iowa? And if he can convert in Iowa and win the Iowa caucus, can he win in South Carolina? Because if he can't win in South Carolina, Mitt Romney's just so well positioned with our new primary rules that he could just flat out win this by bleeding everyone else to death.
Although the new primary rules actually would lend itself towards a longer race, because before April 1st, it's not going to be winner take all as it used to be. So theoretically, second place could be almost as important as winning first place. So that would keep people in the race longer.
Right. And as we talk about that, we've got Newt Gingrich here in New York City visiting wealthy individuals to seek donations. And a lot of people are looking at what's going to happen in the next few months. And I know we've already touched on the money, Ford. But who do you think can come out on top on this, money-wise?
Well, money-wise, it's gonna be Romney. But on the other side, though, because a lot of establishment Republicans are backing Romney because they just feel the safest with him right now. Gingrich has to demonstrate himself to be a stick-to-itive leader who's going to, hold on to his guns and push a lot of tax reform, entitlement reform, and regulatory reform. If he can get a lot of the GOP bundlers who are sitting on the sidelines out there going, who do I back, to come into his campaign and win a couple of those primaries and early nominating contests, we really could have a long fight and have something like we saw with Obama and Clinton in 2008.
And one thing that's missing, and I think Ford and I would agree on this, is that the whole great thing with Iowa and New Hampshire was this whole retail politics. You're in the diner, you're in the living room, you're face-to-face with people. That hasn't really happened much. It's been mostly debates and mostly coming on television shows and cable news. And, Rick Santorum has been in every county in Iowa. John Huntsman, I always talk about and people laugh, but he's been in every county in New Hampshire. What if those voters really say, I don't care about the polls, I like the fact that they're coming and talking to me?
Right.
What if they do really well?
I think Romney, Romney just actually spent some time going door to door, knocking on doors and visiting with voters.
It was one block, but still, it's a start,
I've lost audio on this end.
Sounds like Ford has lost audio, we're hearing there on our panel. So with that, we will just go ahead and wrap up this segment of FoxNews.com Live. But we're going to have Scott, you're going to stay with us. We are going to take a break, and we have a very interesting guest coming up. She's actually sitting right here. We'll introduce her in a moment. But if you had to guess, I just want to put this in your brain now before we go to a commercial break. If you had to guess what was the most searched item, news item, in all of this year, what do you think it would be for Yahoo? Think about that, and we'll have the answer when we come back. And hallelujah, we have Ford right back so we can say a proper goodbye. Sorry about that, Ford. I heard that we had some...
little audio flub. No biggie.
No biggie. Well, okay, we've got Ford O'Connell, who's been kind enough to join us from our Washington, D.C. bureau. Thank you so much for chiming in on Mr. Cain and all that it has brought this weekend and moving forward. We look forward to talking to you again. And while I have you, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I want to transition and segue into our next segment. We're going to be talking with Heather Cabot from Yahoo, talking about the top searches in Yahoo of this year. If you had to guess right now, if you had to guess between the top searches, would it be Osama bin Laden, Lindsay Lohan, Kim Kardashian, or Casey Anthony? What do you think was searched most by Yahoo users?
Kim Kardashian.
She's up there. Okay, Ford, thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.